So I'm going to quickly introduce myself before I introduce our final speaker for today. I'm Lisa. As you've already heard, I'm on the DLNET committee. In my day job, I am a digital engagement and international strategy consultant. So digital learning is obviously very close to my heart. And as I said, we've got one final speaker today before we go into our open networking session at 3 p.m. And by now, you probably already know the format. Pop your questions into the chat whenever they appear in your head. I'll keep an eye on them and I'll try and keep track of those for the Q&A at the end of it. So I've got the privilege to introduce Sarah Shaw to you, who is Programme Manager for answering the sector's digital questions at the Heritage Alliance. We've already heard about the DASH survey this morning. So Sarah is working on a connected project together with the Heritage Alliance, and she has worked with lots and lots of organisations throughout the cultural heritage sector for more than 15 years now. So she knows what she's talking about. Basically, without further ado, Sarah, over to you whenever you're ready.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. Lovely introduction. I hope I know what I'm talking about. I will do my best. So I'm Sarah Shaw and I'm working as a freelance programme manager with the Heritage Alliance at the moment, and I've got a short presentation to show you about a current project we're working on, and then, as Lisa says, we'll be doing a Q&A at the end. So hopefully the wonders of me sharing my screen will work. Lisa, please do shout if it doesn't. Is that all working for everyone? Fantastic. So yes, so I'm working on a project called Finding, Sharing and Creating Digital Content, which is funded by the lottery via the Heritage Lottery Fund. And I started this role back in June time, and it will run through to next May. If any of you don't know about us already, the Heritage Alliance are an independent heritage movement in England and are really there to support the sector. So they do things like influencing legislation and policy. They do lots of training and events. They run lots of different committees as well for the sector, and it's a membership body as well. So there's lots of support there for people. And as I say, I'm running this project through them. So in terms of what Digital Skills for Heritage is, so if you've not come across it already, Digital Skills for Heritage is a lottery-funded initiative. There's £2.6 million over 3 years, and it's really all about providing advice and resources and training across the sector, particularly in light of the pandemic and trying to fill some of those gaps that we've all got. The project I'm working on around digital content is just one of 7 strands that's happening through this funding stream. And it's all building on the work of the Heritage Digital Project, which ran from March last year till September 2021 and had lots of fantastic resources and training attached to that. So in terms of this particular project, we're going to essentially be coming up with the 100 questions that the sector most wants answering about digital. My strand is focusing on digital content. The Arts Marketing Association is looking around digital engagement and activities. And then Leeds University is also answering questions around digital leadership and business models and that sort of thing. And essentially there'll be a big website launch in February next year, where hopefully all of these most common questions and issues around digital are answered in one place, and it'll be full of free resources for you to access. The strand that I'm working on around finding, sharing and creating digital content, there's 4 key partners. So there's the Heritage Alliance, Charity Digital, Naomi Corn Associates and Media Trust. So some really brilliant minds coming together that do lots of work around digital skills and upskilling in the sector. And this is very much around content, and you'll see shortly the kind of things that we'll be looking at. But essentially, by the end of my project, I'm hoping that there'll be a big suite of resources that we can share with the sector that really help provide answers to those most pressing questions around digital content creation and sharing. And we'll do that through videos, checklists, infographic, all sorts of different resources will be held on this website for free. In terms of creating those questions, though, finding out what the most pertinent issues are, I wanted to make sure that we really got to the heart of what the sector has to say about this, rather than going off our own knowledge, which, you know, we do have a lot of across the consortium, but things change rapidly, and we needed to know at this point in time what the most pressing issues were for the sector. We did that by doing a survey, which some of you might have responded to. We had nearly 120 responses in just over 10 days, which was fantastic. And we also did lots of one-to-one interviews and group conversations as well. And to make sure we had that full understanding of what the big digital issues are right now, we did some really concentrated activity. So, for example, we knew in the Heritage Alliance we didn't have much coverage in Wales and Northern Ireland and much understanding of the support available there. So we did some targeted sessions around those regions, which was really, really important and brought up some really interesting areas for us to consider. In terms of who was talking to us, 80% were from micro to medium-sized organisations, so the kind of organisations that haven't got specific digital staff in place. Most, nearly a quarter were led by volunteers, and nearly 60% were only just starting their digital journey, and another 62% also were saying they didn't have a digital strategy. So there's lots for us to think about. And within that as well, just to give you a bit of context, just to show really, we were talking to everyone from across the sector. This isn't just, museums, this isn't just collections. We were talking to landscape organisations, community groups, historic buildings as well. So hopefully the information we've gleaned during this process will mean that the resources we produce are really, really useful to everyone across the sector. So in terms of those key findings, as we know, the sector has been massively affected by the pandemic, and we're relying more and more on digital skills than we have been before. Yet 40% of our respondents said they hadn't accessed or been offered digital skills training during the pandemic, which is frightening when you think how many of us have moved to online meetings, to online engagement, training sessions, all that sort of things, and they hadn't been offered any training to make that possible. As I said, 62% have no digital strategy still, even though we're moving more and more into this digital sphere. But what they did say, as we all know, is that digital fatigue is really high, and that's internally with staff, but also with their audiences. In terms of that training need, we know that because of the economic decline, that's reduced the capacity for training and also skills development. But at the same time, there's an increased demand on digital responsibility and legality, which a lot of our people responding were saying they're struggling to keep up to date with. Another thing to note was people saying that digital skills are decreasing in organisations as staff and volunteers leave for various reasons. And as I say, this knowledge gap that we had personally in Northern Ireland and Wales, but the overriding feeling that came back was most of us are just focusing on our biggest challenge, which is survival right now. It's opening our doors, it's making sure that we can pay our bills, yet at the same time there's this massive digital drive and drain on them. In terms of those themes that came out then, some massive themes were coming out. The need to create engaging, audience-focused content, the need to stay relevant. How do I keep up with social media? How do I entice people away from our competitors? How I upskill on digital content creation, all new things for a lot of people. How do I get my content to return an investment? A massive thing we found was this financial need for content to return an investment when physical sites might be closed. How we can create content to support diverse audiences, and compliance and best practice around producing accessible content. If you're not used to producing digital content, how do I make sure that it's accessible? And then one of the things that seemed to terrify people the most was compliance for copyright and data protection, the legality of finding, sharing and creating content online. So I wanted to drill a little deeper into some of these, and I thought, so you don't just have me talking at you all the time, we'll do some polls. So before we do the poll, just to give you kind of a bit of an overview. So one of the key findings was this capacity to do digital, which I think was being touched upon towards the end of the last speaking session. A lot of the groups were saying we want a more strategic approach to digital, but we've got a lack of capacity. And some people were saying, I don't even know how to open a second tab. We had people struggling to sign up to our Zoom sessions just to come along and do a Q&A with us. Yet at the same time, we're trying to do more and more digital within our organisations. And as I think was being said before, digital is falling across so many roles now as an add-on, yet we've not got the CPD to make that possible and make people feel that they're doing that to their full capacity or strength, that digital skill sets in organisations are limited and you can't meet the changing needs of the digital landscape. But also, and I'm an example of this, the transitional nature of project roles. We have people coming in, delivering digital projects, setting up new social media profiles, bringing in content management systems, lots and lots of things like that. It might be on a temporary basis, it might be on a project basis. I think nearly every job I've had in this sector in over 15 years has been project based, and those people leave and take that knowledge with them. So we're constantly losing this digital skills and knowledge as time progresses. So what I would like to ask you in this poll is, do you have a dedicated digital role in your organisation? And that's a yes, a no, or a not sure. So I think, Lisa, will that just magically pop up for people? Yeah. So hopefully people can see that. I can't see it, unfortunately. So Lisa, maybe you could shout out the response for me.
Yeah, so that's popping up for me. It's kind of half and half, yes and no.
Okay.
Most people seem to be sure whether it is a yes or a no, though.
Okay. Okay.
Now we're getting a bit more yeses. We're at 56% yes and 44% no.
Okay, very interesting. Okay, that's interesting to know, because yes, we had lots and lots of people saying, you know, I'm the front of house manager, but now I've also got to manage the social media, or I'm finance, but I've somehow ended up having to buy in and set up a new CMS scheme, that kind of thing. So that's interesting to hear. Thanks, Lisa. So another key one that came out was hybrid working and sharing content in a hybrid fashion. So basically, it's starting to open up. There's a desire for hybrid events. We know that some audience are more happy to come on site and engage with our content in person, but some are wanting to remain online. And some organisations have noticed that actually digital had allowed them to reach more diverse audiences than they had before as well. However, whilst there's this desire to do hybrid content and hybrid content delivery, there tends to be quite little investment in terms of equipment, training and skills in how to do it. And it is a skill being able to do that. One of our participants noticed we're definitely going to continue with blended delivery. In the future, all of our projects will be offered for them to be blended, and we've loaned users equipment if they can't attend. Now, I imagine that's very much one of the few examples of where people have been able to do that, being able to loan equipment out to users. I think the majority of us tend to struggle with how to access audiences that aren't necessarily that adept at using kind of this online toolkit. So again, I'm quite interested. What's your plan for delivering content in a hybrid way? Are you doing it? Are you avoiding it? Or are you considering it? Have we got, Lisa? I feel like we're on a game show, Lisa. This is exciting.
Isn't it? Isn't it? Absolutely. So at the moment, considering it and doing it are kind of neck to neck. It's a bit more doing it, 52% doing it, considering it 45%, and avoiding it only 3%.
That's really interesting. Okay, thanks, Lisa. And then this financial insecurity around digital skills. So as we know, the pandemic's led to this decrease in income for so many organisations. Some have jumped to the challenge, we found, and diversified their portfolios, particularly in our one-to-one sessions. Organisations were talking about changes they'd made to try and create income from their content, but so many felt unable to do this because of a lack of digital skills. With lots of people just saying they don't know where to start and what platforms they should use for their organisation. And again, you know, we had one person say, all I wanted to do was move the phone number over. They were working from home now, and they can't even move the phone number from the main office back to a home address. So how on earth are they going to start setting up, you know, revenue streams based on the content that they're sharing? So again, it's just showing this kind of massive digital divide that we have, with some people that are able to go streets ahead with making income from their content, to others that are struggling again just day to day to do tasks that a lot of people would find quite simple. So how many of you are able to generate income from your content? Are you doing that right now? Do you know? You're not sure?
Okay, answers coming in so far. Well, the no's are having it. 64%, 66% no, 24% yes, and not sure 10%.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. I think it's a really tricky one, and certainly when we were having these conversations, it was really hard to give an answer as to how best to do this. So really interesting for that percentage that are generating an income from their content right now. Thanks, Lisa. So then staff skills, again, a little bit like capacity. We've talked about the fact that, you know, the sector is fueled by temporary and freelance roles. I think a lot of us can acknowledge that. And also the fact many were saying, as well as the our kind of one of our heads of departments at the Heritage Alliance, we noted that notoriously as a sector, we offer incredibly low salaries. I think that is universally acknowledged, and the industry is therefore failing to attract people external to the sector that could bring in those digital skills, because it's just not, the income just isn't there to draw them away potentially from more private sector roles. And also noted again that the demographic of people that were replying, lots of the organisations coming back to us were volunteer led, and we know that typically it can tend to be older people that are volunteering who themselves then acknowledge that they had lower digital skills. So the staff skills we just don't necessarily have there. And someone noticed, I'm not necessarily an expert, but I'm self-taught. Even with this knowledge, it's difficult to explain to the rest of the team what it is I'm talking about. So definitely some issues there around staff skills and retention and drawing in skills from external sectors as well. So how digitally skilled is your organisation? We asked this on our survey, and we said, were you starting out, were you moving on, or were you advancing in terms of those skills that you've got? I love it. Sean's noticed it sounds like survey says, I know, it's like being on Family Fortunes, doing these today with you.
This is a much more mixed picture, although the moving on is moving ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, 43% moving on, advancing 34, starting out 21. Interesting.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you for that, everyone. Right, I think this is the last one we're going to have to do polling on. So talking about audience expectations. So the other big thing that came out of the survey was trying to meet the expectations of our audiences and how challenging that can be with emerging technology. People started mentioning AI and VR a lot in this kind of panic state of, I've heard this and I don't know what to do about it. This is on top of the fact that, you know, in our everyday lives, people tend to be much more digital savvy. They're using tech all the time on their phones. But at the same time, organisations are saying that, you know, their staff and volunteers are struggling with digital basics like video conferencing. So organisations are feeling this pressure to catch up, to meet those audience expectations. But at the same time, they haven't got the time, the capacity or the budgets to do that. And a couple of people said things like small organisations haven't thought beyond social media. They don't have the time, the headspace or the capacity to do that. And then also thinking about, can museums innovate further past what's been done already, was a really interesting question that was posed in one of our sessions, saying that there's a mismatch between audience expectations and how much money heritage organisations actually have to play with to start delivering different digital approaches and different means of sharing content and all these kind of snazzy things that come out. So how about your organisations? Can you meet your audience's digital expectations? That's I think our last poll.
Okay, answers coming in now. Not sure is in the lead. More than 52% is not sure. Yes is 26 and no is 22.
Interesting. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that, and thank you for being a wonderful co-host for our quizzes. So now we know all of that. So now we've got all these findings and done all this in-depth study. So what are we going to do to support these organisations? And as I say, this project is very much around content. So finding, creating and sharing our digital content. So we are now in the process of creating a suite of resources to answer these questions. So the Heritage Alliance, Media Trust, Naomi Korn and Charity Digital are all working together to create some fantastic videos, case studies, templates, how-to guides to start dealing with some of the issues that have cropped up. And we'll be working with some fantastic trainers as well to produce all of this content. At the same time, I'm really keen that the organisations and individuals we worked with during the research period we carry on with. So I'm going to get them to use and test these resources to make sure they're fit for purpose, because, you know, we're working with organisations where it's a single volunteer running a charity right through to, you know, organisations with hundreds of staff. So we need to make sure these resources are fit for purpose and meet those needs. And then we're going to start sharing all these resources on this fantastic new Heritage Hub website, which is going to launch in February 2022, which is going to bring those other heritage strands in that I noted as well. In the meantime, while you're waiting for these fantastic resources to be made available, there's other ways you can get support. So another one of these strands of kind of the Heritage Digital funding stream from the lottery is the Heritage Digital Academy. So there at the moment, just trying to recruit people for their latest cohort. So it's free, and it's basically lots of fantastic training sessions on innovation, enterprise and organizational planning in relation to digital and technology. So that's got people like the same organizations that are working with me, Charity Digital, Media Trust, Naomi Corn Associates, but also a DOT project as well. And I think the first 2 cohorts have happened already, and they've been absolutely fantastic. So some really great training there for you. You've all heard about the DASH survey, but I'm going to ask you again to please fill it in, because it gives so much fantastic information, and we use the DASH survey from 2020 to fill in a lot of the gaps in our research as well. So do please fill that in too. And then also some of you might have seen, again, from this same funding strand, that Culture 24 just released a lot of information there, leading the sector project that they did. So there's lots of free access to resources there. And also, as I touched on at the beginning, the Heritage Digital Lab project that ran last year, we're kind of the next phase on from that. So there's a link to that website if you need it as well. So I will stop sharing. And has anyone got any questions?